There comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes no one's coming to save her. No magic night, no lucky break, no applause loud enough to drown out her own doubts. In that moment, she has two choices: break down or rise. And if there's one thing I've learned in my journey from Bollywood stages to Hollywood sets, from lonely hotel rooms to red carpets filled with flashing lights, it's this: you must always be ready to survive alone. Alone doesn't mean lonely. Alone means powerful. It means you've stopped waiting for permission to shine. It means you've stopped depending on validation to feel worthy. It means when the lights go out, you still glow because your fire doesn't come from others. It comes from within. I've had moments when people doubted me, questioned my voice, underestimated my strength, and that's okay. Let them. Because when you know who you are, the noise becomes background music. I wasn't born strong, I had to train for it. Emotionally, mentally, physically. I had to learn how to clap for myself when no one else did, how to hustle when no one was watching, how to dry my tears, fix my crown, and keep walking even when the path felt endless. Let me tell you something every woman needs to hear. You don't need to be rescued. You need to remember who you are, the version of you that once dreamed boldly, loved fiercely, believed fully she's still there. Maybe buried under the weight of disappointments, rejections, betrayals, but she's alive. And when you decide to stand on your own, when you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself, something powerful shifts. Being ready to survive alone is not about closing your heart. It's about building a foundation so strong that no matter who leaves, who stays, or who never even shows up, you keep rising. You learn to eat alone, travel alone, dream alone, build alone. And soon you realize you're not just surviving, you're thriving. You become your own support system, your own cheerleader, your own hero. So if today you feel abandoned, overlooked, or simply scared of standing on your own, remember this: some of your most defining moments will come when no one's clapping. Some of your greatest victories will be silent. And some of your most beautiful transformations will happen when you're alone. Darling, survival isn't a weakness. It's a superpower, and you were born to survive anything. So own your solitude. Embrace your strength and walk forward like the force you are, because you don't just survive alone. You conquer alone. There comes a time in every person's life when they must realize that the most dependable strength they will ever find is the one within themselves. Self-reliance is not just a backup plan for when things go wrong. It's a mindset, a way of life. It means choosing to trust yourself when the world turns its back, and learning to walk forward even when the path is uncertain. In a world that often teaches us to depend on others for validation, support, or even happiness, being self-reliant can feel lonely at first. But the truth is, it is the most liberating power you can ever possess. You stop needing applause, you stop waiting for approval, and you stop relying on others to complete you. You become whole just as you are. When you're self-reliant, your strength doesn't come from someone else's presence in your life. It comes from the lessons you've learned through your own experiences, your own tears, and your own victories. You begin to realize that surviving alone isn't a weakness. It's a skill. A woman who is self-reliant knows how to stand up after a fall without someone rushing in to lift her. She learns to be her own source of inspiration. That kind of strength is unstoppable because it's not borrowed, it's earned. Relying on yourself also allows you to make decisions from a place of clarity. You're not influenced by the need to please others or fear of being left behind. You begin to make choices that truly serve your growth, not just your relationships. That doesn't mean you shut people out. It means you stop depending on them to carry your emotional weight. You carry your own, and when you do that, something magical happens. You attract people who don't need to fix you, but who respect your strength. You create healthier connections because you're not clinging out of fear, you're sharing out of confidence. The journey to becoming self-reliant isn't always easy. It requires a deep look in the mirror and the willingness to face life head-on, without blaming others or making excuses. But once you commit to it, you'll discover a version of yourself that is powerful, graceful, and resilient beyond measure. You won't need to be saved because you'll have already become your own hero. And in a world where so much is uncertain, that is the kind of strength that will carry you through anything. Being alone is often misunderstood. Many people associate it with sadness, isolation, or lack of connection. But the truth is, being alone is not a weakness. It's a strength that many never truly learn to harness. When you are alone, you are not empty. You are full of your own thoughts, your own strength, and your own energy. It is in those quiet, unaccompanied moments that you begin to hear the most important voice of all, your own. In a world filled with noise and constant distraction, solitude can become the most sacred space you possess. When you're not surrounded by others, you're forced to rely on your own instincts. You begin to see clearly who you are, what you want, and what truly matters to you. You're no longer influenced by the expectations of others or the pressure to fit into someone else's vision. Instead, you begin to shape your life based on your own values and desires. This clarity is a gift, and it only comes when you're willing to embrace being alone rather than running from it. There's also a kind of strength that's built in the silence. When you navigate challenges without leaning on anyone else, you realize how capable you truly are. You learn how to make decisions for yourself, how to keep moving even when it hurts, and how to protect your peace. You stop waiting for others to complete you because you've already completed yourself. That kind of emotional independence is rare, and it makes you unshakable. You no longer depend on someone else's presence to feel valuable, and that frees you from the chains of neediness and insecurity. Being alone also gives you time to grow. When you're not constantly giving your energy away to others, you have the space to develop your talents, heal your wounds, and rediscover your passions. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into other people's lives and start expanding into your own potential. This kind of self-focus is not selfish, it's necessary. It's how you evolve into the person you were meant to be. Alone doesn't mean broken. It doesn't mean forgotten. It means you are brave enough to face life on your terms. It means you trust your own company. And when you can find peace in your solitude, you become someone who no longer fears being left behind. Because you know you're never truly alone when you're connected to your own power. That is not just survival, that is transformation. There are moments in life when the crowd goes silent, the applause fades, and no one is there to cheer you on. In those moments, it's easy to feel invisible or question whether your efforts even matter. But those are also the moments when your inner voice becomes the loudest, and you learn the most powerful lesson of all, how to celebrate yourself, even in silence. When no one is clapping, you must be the one to recognize your own progress, honor your own resilience, and take pride in every small step forward. Because your journey is not always going to be visible to others, and it doesn't have to be. You don't need an audience to validate your worth. The world might overlook your late night hustle, your quiet sacrifices, or your inner battles, but you see them, you know how far you've come, you know what it took just to keep going when everything felt heavy. And that is worth celebrating. Success isn't always a loud, dramatic event. Sometimes it's the small wins that no one notices. The day you chose peace over conflict, the time you said no when it was hard, the moment you stood your ground when it would have been easier to stay silent. Those victories are just as meaningful, even if no one else sees them. Learning to clap for yourself is an act of self-love. It's about acknowledging your own effort and not waiting for outside recognition to feel proud. Because if you only feel worthy when others praise you, you'll always be chasing approval. But when you learn to validate yourself, you take back your power. You become your own source of motivation. And that makes you unstoppable. There is a certain kind of beauty in becoming your own cheerleader. It builds confidence, self-respect, and emotional strength. You stop needing permission to feel good about who you are and what you're doing. You begin to move with assurance, knowing that your worth is not tied to applause, likes, or attention. It's rooted in your truth, your growth, and your commitment to becoming the best version of yourself, even if no one's watching. So, when you find yourself in those quiet moments when the world is not paying attention, remember this: you are still winning, you are still rising, and you have every right to celebrate that. Clap for yourself, loudly, proudly, and often. Because your journey deserves to be honored, especially by the one who lived it, you. Rejection has a way of shaking us to our core. It makes us question our abilities, our dreams, even our identity. But what many don't realize is that rejection isn't a sign to give up. It's a sign to go harder. Every time someone underestimates you, every time a door closes in your face, every time you hear the word no, You are being given a choice. You can shrink back in self-doubt, or you can let that moment ignite something fierce inside you. Some of the most successful people in the world were told they would never make it, that they weren't good enough, pretty enough, smart enough. But instead of letting those voices define them, they used rejection as motivation to prove them all wrong. There's something incredibly powerful about being doubted. It gives you a fire that no praise ever could. When people reject you, they're not really defining your value. They're revealing their own limitations. And if you allow their limited vision to stop you, then you're choosing to believe in their doubts instead of your own destiny. But if you use that rejection as fuel, you become unstoppable. You stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. You stop seeking validation and start building your own platform. Rejection becomes redirection, an opportunity to level up in ways you never imagined. Turning rejection into motivation requires emotional strength. It means facing disappointment head on without bitterness. It means learning the lesson, adjusting your path, and coming back stronger. You don't just bounce back, you rise with greater clarity, greater purpose. And over time, those rejections become markers of resilience. They remind you that you didn't give up even when it was tempting. They show you that you're not fragile. You're fierce. Every no can sharpen your focus. It forces you to reevaluate what you truly want and how badly you're willing to work for it. It pushes you to grow, to evolve, and to develop a level of perseverance that sets you apart. Eventually, you stop fearing rejection altogether because you know it no longer has the power to break you. It can delay your journey, but it cannot derail your destiny. So when the world tells you no, when people overlook your potential, when life tries to hold you back, let that be the spark. Turn every closed door into a reason to create your own path. And let every rejection remind you that your story is far from over. You're not being dismissed. You're being prepared for something greater. Keep going. Building an unshakable inner core is one of the most essential steps in becoming truly self-sufficient. Life is unpredictable. People will come and go, situations will shift, and circumstances will change without warning. If your sense of worth and identity is tied to external things, you'll constantly feel off balance. But when you've taken the time to cultivate strength from within, no outside force can truly destabilize you. You become rooted in your values, confident in your direction, and emotionally anchored in who you are. That kind of inner foundation doesn't just help you survive, it helps you thrive under pressure. This strength isn't built overnight. It comes from consistently showing up for yourself, especially during the hard moments. It means having conversations with yourself that are honest, not comforting. It means holding yourself accountable even when no one else is watching. When you commit to growing your inner core, you begin to develop resilience that doesn't need an audience. You don't break easily because you've already learned how to pick yourself back up. You've been through storms and found shelter within your own spirit. That kind of resilience becomes your armor. Having a strong inner foundation also changes the way you approach relationships. You stop forming attachments based on fear of being alone. You no longer rely on someone else's presence to feel secure. Instead, you connect from a place of strength, knowing that your identity isn't dependent on another person's acceptance or love. You bring your whole self to the table, not to be completed, but to be shared, and that makes every connection you form more authentic and balanced, because you're not giving out of lack, you're giving from abundance. When life throws unexpected challenges your way, your inner foundation becomes your guide. You don't panic, you don't collapse, you reflect, adapt, and continue. And in those moments you realize that true power isn't loud or dramatic, it's steady. It's the quiet confidence that you'll be okay, no matter what. It's the trust that you've got your own back. That level of self-trust is rare, but it's life-changing. It frees you from dependence and makes you emotionally invincible. So if you want to live a life that can withstand the ups and downs, start by building within. Ground yourself in your truth. Learn your patterns, know your triggers, and master your emotions. Because once your inner world is stable, the outer chaos loses its control over you. And then, no matter who walks in or out of your life, you remain unshaken, unbothered, and unbreakable. Solitude has a way of revealing parts of yourself that the noise of the world often drowns out. When you're alone, truly alone, you begin to see your thoughts clearly. Hear your emotions honestly and face your truth without filters. At first, that silence can be uncomfortable. It exposes the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. But if you stay with it, if you lean into that stillness instead of running from it, something powerful begins to happen. You start to transform, not because someone else told you to, but because you finally give yourself the space to grow. Many people are afraid of being alone because they've been conditioned to believe that their worth is tied to their connections, their relationships, or their popularity. But being alone doesn't mean you're unworthy. It means you're brave enough to face yourself. It means you trust your own presence more than the approval of others, and in that trust you begin to evolve. You stop performing for the world and start becoming who you truly are. You realize that solitude isn't isolation, it's elevation. It's where healing begins, where purpose is discovered, and where clarity unfolds. During times of solitude, you have the opportunity to reconnect with your dreams, reflect on your journey, and reset your direction. You no longer have to compromise to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. You begin to make choices that align with your soul, not your social circle. You rediscover passions that were buried beneath obligations and expectations. You begin to love your own company, not just tolerate it, and that self-love becomes the foundation for everything else in your life. This transformation doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the quiet moment, early mornings, long walks, silent nights. It's not glamorous, but it's real, and it builds something no one can take away, inner peace. When you find that peace in solitude, you stop chasing chaos. You stop settling for relationships that drain you, careers that don't fulfill you, and environments that dim your light. You begin to move differently, speak differently, live differently. You walk with intention because you've done the inner work. The truth is, the most profound changes don't always happen when you're surrounded by others. They happen when you're alone with yourself, and in those moments you don't just survive, you rise. You shed what no longer serves you and step into the power that's always been waiting inside. Solitude is not the absence of love. It's the birthplace of transformation, and once you embrace it, you become unstoppable.